In this video, we're going to take a look at the learning target. I can find the vertex for the graph of a quadratic. So what do we need to know? The vertex of a parabola is the turning point of the curve. So some rules about the vertex. When a is greater than 0, or another way of looking at it, when a is positive, the vertex is the lowest point or the minimum, and the graph opens upward. So here's an example of the graph opening upward, and my minimum is this vertex point there at the bottom. That's that turning point of the curve. Okay, notice here, here's my A term, that 2 out front, and that indicates my A value, and since it's positive, that's how I knew my graph was going to open up, and I'd have a minimum value for my vertex. Now, when A is less than 0 or negative, the vertex is the highest point or the maximum, and the graph opens downward. So in this case, my A is -3. That negative indicates my graph or my parabola is going to open down, and my maximum then is my vertex. Now, this is true when we are in standard form this way. It will also be true in other forms when we look at the value of A. So finding the vertex. Since the graph opens up, we're going to have a minimum of the graph. So in this example, my 2 is positive, so we know that we're going to open up if I were to be graphing this. Okay, so to find the vertex, we use this formula over here. So for my x-coordinate, I'm going to use the formula of -b over 2a. And then I'm going to take that answer and I'm going to plug it in to my function to find the value of y. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm identifying my a, b, and my c because I need a and b for my x-coordinate. So a was 2, b was 4, and c was -1. I'm going to go ahead and evaluate that using my formula for the x-coordinate, -b over 2a. So -4, because 4 was my b value, over 2a, and a was 2. So I plugged those in and simplified, and I got -1. So now I'm going to take that value of -1, and I'm going to plug it into my function up here. So for my y-coordinate, when I plug that in, it will look like 2 times -1 all squared, plus 4 times -1 minus 1, and that simplifies to -3. So my coordinate for my vertex is at -1, -3. You're finding that point, and in this case, it would be that minimum, and it would be at -1, -3 on the coordinate plane. All right, so let's take a look at another example. Now would be a great time for you to pause, try this one on your own, and come back and check. This time I have f of x equals -x² plus 6x minus 9. So right away I notice I have this negative out front, so I know that my parabola is going to open downward because it's negative. I go ahead and identify my a, b, and c. So my a in this case is -1, my b is 6, and my c is -9. So the x-coordinate of the vertex, we go and we use that formula for my x-coordinate, that -b over 2a, and I plug that in. So -6, because 6 was b, over 2 times a, and a was -1. That's going to simplify to -6 over 2, which simplifies to +3. Now remember, your next step, you take that answer and you plug that back in to your function. So I'm going to evaluate my function at 3. This should say f of 3 right here. Okay, so I'm evaluating my function at 3. So -3 squared, because that's from my function, plus 6 times 3 minus 9. And when I simplify that, I end up with 0. So my vertex in this situation is at 3, 0. So my maximum, since I have a graph that opens down or a downward parabola, would be at 3, 0. All right, if you need some more information on this topic, you can check out the Learning Target spreadsheet for additional resources, videos, and practice.